This is, again, a nice instance of Ellie being concerned about how other people are affected by things that she's involved in. And so she just wants to, like, I didn't mean for that to happen, and I would never do something like that to you. This is so much more, like, why did we not have a scene like this in the show? Ellie already is more of a contributing member as far as just strategic smarts are concerned, which is something we never got from her in the show. It really seems so deliberate that they made her completely incompetent and a pain in the ass. I do not understand the logic of that decision. I can't see how it was an accident because it was so consistent with her character throughout the entire season 2 of HBO's show. Hey, this is the Sword and the Pen Reflections. It is my casual alternative to that channel. If you're new, here's the deal. I'm a developmental book editor. My job is to help writers in the early drafts of their story improve their storytelling. On this channel, I take books, cartoons, and I guess games now, and their adaptations, which are usually live action, and I compare the two to see which one I think is doing a better job at telling a great story, and then I discuss why certain choices are either better or worse for telling that story. We're going to be looking at The Last of Us Game 2. I haven't seen it before, but I'm going to be watching it here on my phone, and this is going to be the first video of a series. I'm going to be breaking up my reviews of this particular game because it's really long. So this one will end right after Joel is, I did a full critique of Game 1, which you can find up there in the corner or down in the description. Now, I'm not playing the game, but I am watching somebody else's gameplay that I have been assured is very thorough with not just the cutscenes, but all of the dialogue and important moments in the game. No, I'm not playing the game because I don't know how to play video games, and it would take me so long just to figure out how to play so that I can get through this game. It wouldn't be worth the time for me or for you. Keeping that in mind, there's lots of stuff in the game that is optional, so not every player experiences the same events. This became very evident to me in my Game 1 review, because people were telling me things like, hey, you said there's no puns book in the game, but there totally is. But for me, there wasn't, because the person whose gameplay I was watching didn't pick up a pun book. So I do apologize if there's anything that is missed. I think most of the important points, though, are covered. And at that, please like, subscribe, and comment, even if it's just with an emoji. It's a free way for you, like costs nothing, but it helps my channel and my video to get boosted in the algorithm, which is awesome. Otherwise, if you have the means and you're feeling generous, check out my Patreon, Ko-fi, or hit the money heart thanks button down below. You can leave me a one-time tip, or you can become a subscriber and join me in the Discord where we watch movies and stuff every month, which is totally above board. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Let's jump right on in. Okay, this intro scene is exactly what I wanted in the show, but we didn't get. I kept on complaining about how I really would have liked to have seen more personal time between Joel and Tommy, because there's this wonderful scene where Tommy is in the show, in the room with Joel's body, and sort of sends him off. It's like a goodbye, and it is a deep, personal, emotional moment, or it should have been, but I didn't feel it as strongly as I would have liked to, because I never saw the two of them being together in any meaningful kind of way. They never had a meaningful conversation in the entire first and second episode. We just saw them in the same room at one, like the most we saw of them was when Joel was talking to Marie about like, wow, we can't build fast enough. And she's like, you got to build faster. And then Tommy comes in and he lies about what he was doing, which was off shooting with Ellie. And I'm going, it sure would have been nice if we had the two of them have a really deep, meaningful conversation to kind of reinforce that they are both really close and not dependent on each other, but they are an integrated part of each other's lives, because then that will make the loss of Joel feel so much stronger when we get to Joel is gone and here's Tommy without him now. And so I would have just really liked that. This was great though. I am noticing very, very subtle differences in the way that the story is being presented from the previous game. So the focus of Game 1 was Joel. I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, no, Ellie was a focus too. Well, like towards the end, she definitely had a stronger arc, but the majority of the story, we start out with Joel, we end with Joel. It is mainly Joel's story and about him coming back to fatherhood after his loss. So he loses Sarah, meets Ellie, doesn't want to open up to her or become vulnerable in that way again. And at the very end, he takes the step to, I am going to do anything that I possibly can to save her life. And we get a little tiny bit of an introduction to what Ellie's story is, like right at the end there. And it really is like just at the very, very end, where she's talking about how she wants all of this struggle to mean something, to have some sort of a meaning. And there was a problem that I had at the end of game one with her stating this, but then immediately afterwards saying, hey, I'd love to learn how to swim. When we get back, you should show me how to swim. Or once we're done with all of this, I'll go with you anywhere you want to go. Like, I'm just going to do this thing and then I will be with you. You're going to be a family with me. Like, let's go do something. Like, she was making plans for what she wanted to do with her life. She was excited about having this second chance at life. And I thought that scene with the giraffe really highlighted that potential for her life that she was clinging on to, or that she was finally having a grasp on, would be a better way to describe it, because she was depressed and she was kind of shaken after her incident with David. And then she comes to, what was it? Salt Lake City. I forget where the heck they were. I think it was Salt Lake City. And then there's these giraffes and she's smiling and she's enjoying herself. And Joel recognizes that she has a chance at being a regular child and having joy again. So when you do it like this in the game, though, they're saying, okay, this was a very, very important thing to her, was this, that her immunity is something important, like that everything that she has been through is going to be worth it because she is immune. And if I was making this sequel in the show, okay, because obviously it's too late for the game because they made game one. I'm sure they were wondering, well, if game one is a success, then when we do game two, we'll have this other story. But if I was doing the show and I already know game 1 and 2 exist and we're going to do show 1 and show 2, I would have highlighted more in her story that she really wants her immunity to mean something earlier in the story. I wouldn't save it to the end. I would make this something that is more consistent with her character throughout. And we didn't really see that as much in the game. And I know people are going to throw out examples of, well, she said this or did this thing. It was not a highlight in her character. The main highlight in her character was wanting to connect with Joel as he is like my father figure. I mean, that whole thing of her confronting him in the bedroom was, everybody has left me, everybody that I've ever known or relied on or whatever has left me except for you. That was her highlighted moment. Like, that was, if there was a moment in her story for game 1 that we wanted to say this was her big moment, I think that was it. Because the whole game 1 is about Joel accepting her as the child, as his child. Or, not surrogate child, but you get what I mean. So I would have taken her wanting her immunity to mean something, and I would have put it in much sooner in her story in the show. Because obviously you couldn't have done it in the game. But anyway, I like this. I still really, really like this. Also, there was a flaw that they had in the game, and I mentioned it in my critique of game 1. Not of game 1, it was in the show. In the show, when Joel is telling her, it was, turns out there's a lot of people who are immune and they can't find a cure, so I'm sorry, but your immunity means nothing. In the game, she seems upset at that moment, which I thought was good, because she turns away when he says, when he's like, your immunity means nothing. And then she turns away and he goes, I'm sorry. Like, I know that was important to you. That was the writers recognizing that this is an important part of her arc. In the show, she didn't have that upset moment until Joel mentioned Marlene. And I didn't believe it so when I watch a show, I did not pick up on that she wanted her immunity to mean anything, at all. That did not, as someone who had never played the game, when I watched season 1, that did not cross my mind at all. I mean, I could imagine that being the case, but the thing is that she seemed upset that Marlene was caught in the crossfire of this battle with raiders that apparently happened while she was unconscious. And so that was what stood out to me. And then I had to think back and go, you know what? She said in that big pivotal moment, that big moment of her saying, basically she's exposing the core of her journey, or of what's important to her, which is everybody that I've ever cared about has either left me or died except you. And so I'm going, so she didn't really care about Marlene that much. I mean, maybe as a human being, but she didn't see Marlene as family, which undermined some other things going on in the moral conundrum at the end of game 1. But here, he's reinforcing that it was actually the moment of her immunity meaning nothing. The game did a better job here, and I wish that the show had focused more on that being like something that's really, really important to Ellie, that her immunity means something. And there was lots of other things going on in Ellie's journey that to me were a distraction from that. And the main one being she wanted a family. Anyway, let's go on. But I do love this. I love this scene with Joel and Tommy. I think that this is something that the show was severely lacking in season 2, and it would have made Joel's loss, I think, a lot more important because it's a very personal moment. Even the stuff that he had with Marie, is it Marie or Maria? I don't remember which one it is, but the conversation that he was having with her was more about just, how is the town going to get by? And I know that you guys are relying on me to make things happen for the town. And anyway, it's not a very personal thing. And then when we get to the scene with the therapist, which is what it seems they're replacing this Tommy Joel scene with the therapist scene, that didn't mean anything to me because she's not an important part of his life. And I know people are going to go, well, she's in the future. Well, not at the time when you're watching the game or the show. When you're watching the show, you don't know who Gail is. You have no history with her. And so the moment when you should have this personal connection is not personal. It might be on rewatch, but that's unfortunate because wouldn't you want this to affect you in a really massive personal way when we lose Joel on your first viewing? Or do you want it to mean nothing on the first viewing and then something on the second viewing? That it's just not a good way to write a story. A good way to write a story is where you have like maximum impact the first time, and then on rewatches, it has more depth to that impact. It doesn't mean that it's not not as impactful as it was the first time. It just means that there are more layers to it. Anyway, that's it. Moving on. Getting too into this. Now I've got the credits going while Tommy and Joel are riding their horses through the forest and out into the sunset. And I just have to say it's beautiful. This is a beautifully designed game. I mean, I don't recall any scenery like this in season 2. I wish there may have been more focus on the cinematography. Maybe in episode, was it 3, when Ellie and Dina went to the cemetery, we had something kind of like this. I think I would have just liked more playing with the cinematography. Give us some more atmosphere. I will say, for some reason, Jackson in the game feels more fortified. I don't know why. It just feels, you know what? Maybe it's because in the show, they had that battle at Jackson in, I think it was episode 2, and one of the bloaters busts his way through the wall like Juggernaut. But I wish maybe it would have been multiple Juggernauts instead of just one or something. But anyway, that was a general impression from the outset that this looks a lot more fortified. And maybe it's because I'm remembering that vulnerability and kind of now realizing that was a little bit on the weak side. I loved the battle at Jackson. I thought it was great. I thought it was one of the most exciting parts of the entire season. Actually, probably the most exciting part of the season. But yeah, maybe there should have been some other way that the infected made it into the city and not just one random bloater just barrels his way through the wall. I mean, tree trunks are pretty dang tough. You can't really get through them. So, superhuman. He's a juggernaut, the juggernaut. Yeah, and they finish off that scene wonderfully where they've parked the horses. They're at the stable, and anyway, Joel's gonna go off ahead, but Tommy stops him and says, I just wanted to let you know about that thing we discussed earlier. I can't say I would have done anything different if it was me, and I will take it to my grave if I have to. I love this. This is such a great moment. Why was this not in the show? It would have been really nice to have expanded Joel's world just a little bit into Tommy's world. You are now part of this secret that I am keeping. That just would have made the loss of Joel so much stronger. But anyway, let's keep going. Okay, I'm sorry. This part made me laugh. Not because I did anything wrong, but why did the show make this horrible mistake of showing Ellie being not helpful or part of the community at all? Because, okay, so first of all, this sets a very, very different tone in the game. Joel goes into Ellie's garage apartment and she's listening to music so she can't hear him. Because when he comes in and he's like, hey, Ellie, and she doesn't respond. And I thought, oh, I guess she is kind of being a bitch in the game too. But it wasn't that. She had her earbuds in. She couldn't hear him. So he, taps her chair and she freaks out. Oh my gosh, I didn't hear you come in. And she turns around, stands up, hey, Joel, what's up? he just starts going into like, oh, I just wanted to talk to you about how impressed everyone here is, or I'm just checking in, first of all, was what he said. And he's like, and I also wanted to, talk about how everybody's so impressed with you and how well you're helping out and stuff. That is not what happened in the show at all. Like, I don't know why they did not do this. Like, they made Ellie so unlikable in the show, and it makes zero sense to me whatsoever. I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, they wanted to make Abby more likable because that's like the point of the second game, is that you will dislike Ellie and you will like Abby. And I have no idea what happens in the game, like other than what I've seen in the show. But I did hear that we're supposed to like Abby at the end. And I'm going, this is a lot like when you make your antagonist stupid so that way your protagonist seems smart. But they don't seem smart when you've made your antagonist stupid. They just seem not as stupid as the antagonist. This is the same thing in the show. Like, you don't make Abby more likable by making Ellie less likable. Like, that's what the show did. They're like, well, we're just going to make her into somebody nobody can stand, and then people will like Abby. That's not a good way to go about it. I don't know how they're going to do it, but either way, they didn't succeed in making Abby all that likable, or they won't succeed in making all that likable if they're just going to make Ellie look really unlikable. Like, what you want to do is, okay, I'm not explaining this very well, but basically they should have kept Ellie as likable and part of the community and whatnot as she is, and then shown Abby to be like exceptional. Like, she's just like even more so like a greater contributor to the community. She's a better protector, maybe. She's a greater leader, maybe. She's more charismatic. She has stronger morals, whatever you want. Like, make her exceptional. And then we can look at Ellie and go, yeah, she was a good person, but Abby was still a better person, or something like that. But the thing is like, if you make Ellie look worse, it's just going to make it feel like, well, you made her look worse so Abby would look better. And it's just not making a strong case for somebody looking better. Just make somebody look better than horrible. So anyway, but I like how they're portraying Ellie in this so far. And really, I mean, I guess this is just characters talking, which isn't quite the same. Like, I have to see Ellie in action being this contributing member. But they're trying to establish here that for as long as Joel and Ellie have been part of this community, Ellie has been helpful and people are impressed with that. So that is still more than what we got in the show, which was Jesse and the big tall guy that was wrestling Ellie in the beginning going like, nobody expects you to help chop wood or do anything for the community because you see yourself as not part of this community. So, Jesse was the only good thing in season 2. Actually, I kind of liked, what was the name of the other girl? Ellie and, I can't remember the name of the girlfriend, but her. Oh, come on. The Aviator Nation girl. I'm bad with names. Let's keep going. I'm sure she'll come up. Okay, so this scene with Joel giving her the guitar and playing the song for her, and then the two of them making plans to like, I'll teach you starting tomorrow night, and Ellie like, there's obvious tension there where you can see that there's something that's a little tense between them. Clearly she's upset about what has happened. At least we, the audience, know that's what it is, and Joel definitely should know. But in the game, or in the show, this was presented as a flashback, like where there was no tension involved. And we got it several episodes into the season before Joel was lost. Now, I like the idea of this being a happier moment between the two of them without that tension being there, that like what they did in the show, I like that. But I don't like that it was shown when it was shown. I think that the idea to show it first was a great idea. Like, I wish that the show had taken the time to show the progression of Joel's and Ellie's relationship becoming more tense. It seems obvious in this that the thing that Ellie's tense about is what happened at the end of game 1. And in the show, they didn't really show that until her flashback with the two of them going to the museum. And we see it like at the end of that where I didn't know what the heck she was all disturbed by. Like, I thought she was just looking off into the forest, seeing something. Apparently she could see the fireflies in the air, like floating. I did not know. I thought it was just bugs caught in the sunlight. But anyway, she was thinking about the fireflies and it reminded her. That's what the show was saying. But I like the idea of the tension making itself evident earlier on in the story. And I think that the show would have benefited from playing this in the same order. So having the whole flashback stuff, like let that happen early in the season, like the first episode, so we can see how things become rough between them. And then go ahead and introduce that tension earlier. Like have little bits of it lingering, so that way we know this is something from game 1 or from season 1 it's still there, and then just build upon it, which they did do. But then it's like we made a huge leap from, we go to the museum, everything's fantastic, and then you see the fireflies, and then the next flashback was she and I forget what the name of the other girl was, Kate, and they were like flirting and she was getting a tattoo, and Joel got all upset about the two of them being in her room alone, and there was a big fight between them. That was a very big leap. Would have been nice to have seen sort of a more gradual progression of that tension where it's there, but you have the occasional coming out with, okay, wait, I've said that wrong. The occasional coming out with the tension and stuff, but show that they have this like father-daughter relationship, and it's like only when the moments get quiet does she have that tension. I just think that's something that was neglected in the show, like the slow build of that tension. It was a bit more of a leap from one moment to the next. I mean, I love the innocence of everything, but I think that you can introduce it just a little bit earlier in specific moments where she's able to come out of it easily, when she's, you know, in the space shuttle or the shuttle capsule and all kinds of other things like that. But I think you get the idea. And that, if I was going to compare the two, I would say I like the order of events, at least so far. I like that this guitar moment is happening here, but I don't quite like that it's just immediately tense. That was an issue I had with episode 1 of season 1. I would like to have this progress so we can see that, yes, there is tension, but it's going to gradually grow as she becomes smarter and a little bit more independent, but it's still there. And also don't throw it in the middle of the season, or towards the end of the season really is where it was, where this would have been a great precursor to Joel being lost from Ellie's life. Instead, it felt like she lost Joel, and that was a great thing for her because she seemed happier after he was gone, which is basically how the show presented it. It would have been nice to have seen that things were really good with Joel, and then there was this one sour note, and then things were resolved, and then, well, we don't have to see that exactly. I mean, I would have liked it. We'll get to that when we get to that in the game. But just the order of things being presented in the show did not make for Joel's loss being as impactful, I think, as it could have been on a first viewing. Please like, subscribe, and comment, even if it's just with an emoji. It's a free way for you to support the channel, and for me, it might bring in some money from all the commercials they keep putting on my videos. Or if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon or Ko-fi. I've got links in the description. Or you can hit the Money Heart Thanks button down below. Now, let's get back to it. We jump ahead to 4 years and Jesse is on the scene, and it's almost a word for word like redo. Well, not, I mean, obviously the show took from this moment, but yeah, it's him knocking on the door saying, come on, we got to go on patrol. And, you know, hey, I heard you had a pretty eventful night last night, referencing her kissing Dina. Dina was the name of the girl. Dina is Aviator Nation girl. If I was watching this scene for the first time and I had no familiarity with the game, I would probably have zero connection to what's going on. I wouldn't know who Jesse is, wouldn't really care about him, wouldn't care so much about whatever it is that they're talking about because I have no idea what it is that they're talking about. So I do think that the show actually did a good thing in showing what happened to some degree at least, so that we understand the context of who this person is, his relationship with Ellie, his relationship with Dina, and what event they're talking about. Like, that was a good choice on the part of the show. Well done there. I'm not sure how not having that stuff is going to affect the storyline here or like what the focus is, but anytime that you add or remove scenes, it adjusts the focus ever so slightly. This is something you always want to keep in mind whenever you are shuffling scenes or you are cutting things out and adding them. Like, how does this alter the focus of the of the main theme or of the main arc of particular characters? So we're focusing a lot on Ellie is in a position of tension. We had Joel telling us that she's a contributing member of the community, and then we have here this slightly off note where here's a member of the community coming to take her on patrol and going, whoa, you made a move on my girl, but then he's like, actually, it's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong. So it's still painting her in a positive light because she seemed like, I didn't mean to do anything awkward. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, she didn't say that she was sorry, but she said that, like, this is awkward and it really meant nothing, I swear. And he's like, it's okay, man. Like, so it's sort of reinforcing the idea that she has established herself as a trustworthy person, a person who people like, and even when something like this happens, it doesn't affect this other character, this Jessie character. So there's where the focus is there. The unfortunate thing that the show did is that they showed how unlikable and unreliable and untrustworthy Ellie is, and then they had this sort of thing happen, and I didn't really believe that she meant any of the like, oh, I regret doing that, which is basically what I think we were supposed to take away from this, is that she's telling Jessie, like, I am so, like, I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sure it meant nothing. Like, I don't want to spoil things between you and me or cause any problems. I didn't believe there was any sincerity in that in the show because of the pattern of behavior we saw in her before that moment. So this is still portraying her as more likable. I still would have liked to have had all that stuff before, but maybe just make her somebody that we like and then have this moment happen. Anyway. All right, in this next bit here, we've got the game making the same mistake that the show made, which is characters walking and talking, telling us about events that have already happened off screen that we really would have liked to have seen ourselves. Jesse's basically explaining what happened at the dance the night before and saying, hey, just, you know, you're the talk of the town. And then he goes over the events like, you know, Dina, or you kissed Dina. And she's like, actually, Dina kissed me. And then Seth came over and called you a not so nice word. And then Joel decked the guy and Ellie corrects him, like actually just kind of pushed him. And then you got mad at Joel for some reason. Like, that's the tiny indicator that something was wrong. Like, this is all stuff we definitely would have liked to have seen. So I have to applaud the show for actually playing that out. That was a good choice. It will always mean more to the audience if you show us important events than if you just tell us about them. And this does actually play a little more into the character of Ellie that we saw in the show, which was far less reliable or likable, where Ellie asks Jessie, can you just pretend you never saw me this morning? Because Jessie wants to take her to go see Marie, because Maria was like, I want to see you, like, bring her over here. And she's like, just tell her you didn't see me. And he goes, no way. And she goes, where's your loyalty? Which is like the irony that you are saying that to the guy whose girlfriend or ex-girlfriend you just kissed. Like, even though she didn't do anything wrong in that case. But so that was definitely a similar pattern to the Ellie that we saw beforehand. Unfortunately, the show did not show her to be mostly likable, and then we have that. We showed her to be mostly unlikable, and then this, and we're just going, yeah, you hypocrite. In this, I'm just going, ooh, you didn't think that comment through, did you? But the conversation ends with Ellie, in the game we're talking about, saying, hey, are we okay? Like, you and me, are we cool? And he goes, yeah, Ellie, me and Dina are done. And she's like, I just don't want it to be, you know, like, I don't want you to think that, like, she doesn't want things between the two of them to be off or weird. And he's like, you don't have anything to worry about. It's all good. And she goes, thanks. Like, this is so much more, like, why did we not have a scene like this in the show? I do not recall Ellie ever really making an effort to smooth things over with her and Jessie or make sure that things are okay between her and Jessie. We went straight from that doorway scene to him explaining about the stuff that happened with, you know, some patrollers came across a bunch of guys are infected under the snow and stuff. And then Ellie, like, kind of making fun of him for, like, thousands of infected under the ice. You know, that's stupid, basically. And anyway, this is nice. Like, this is, again, a nice instance of Ellie being concerned about how other people are affected by things that she's involved in. Even though she's not the one who kissed Dina, Dina kissed her, she recognizes that that can create a sense of, you were involved in something that hurt me. And so she just wants to, like, I didn't mean for that to happen, and I would never do something like that to you. It happened, and I didn't really have a way to stop it from happening, or she did, but she didn't. You get the idea that she just wants to have a positive relationship with Jessie, and I like that. And I like that Jessie is like, hey, it's okay, it's all good. I wish the show had done that. Okay, so then we've got Maria taking Ellie to Seth, who apologizes, and it goes basically down the same way as it did in the show, with the exception of the show adding Ellie's comments like, yeah, sure, people get drunk and say things they've never thought before in their life all the time, which is just like, she's being very antagonistic at that point. This is the first instance in the game where I have seen Ellie having basically, I have the same sentiment towards her as I did in the show in this particular moment, where I'm like, dude, this guy is apologizing to you. He obviously means it, and you're totally rejecting his apology. So I would say that this is the most true to form scene that we have had so far as the crossover from the show. The game and the show do basically the same thing in this moment. The only exception being that in the game, we had a much more likable character up until this point, and in the show, she was not. So you get to this point, and I'm going, oh, come on, Ellie. Just like, obviously he's sorry, but then again, we didn't see what it was that upset her. Maybe it was something really bad. But the thing is that Maria seems to like, Ellie, like, you should say you're sorry, like, or not say you're sorry, but accept the sandwiches and just be nice about this. He's obviously making an effort. He obviously means this. This is the sentiment that we are seeing here. So she's the only one who we are seeing as a third-party judge on what happened the night before, because we, the audience, can't be a judge for ourselves since we didn't see it. So knowing from the show what happened that night makes this moment in the show, her behavior almost less forgivable, because it's like, look, he was drunk. He did say something that was terrible, but he obviously is here in a spirit of contrition, and he's sorry. He's made you guys steak sandwiches, which I'm sure are not easy to make because they live in the apocalypse, and I'm sure they don't get steak every meal. So he's making a sacrifice to show that he really means this apology, and she's saying no. And in the show, that was less forgivable because Ellie herself her treating him the way that she did in this moment was less forgivable in the show because she was not a forgivable person herself. So it's going, you should be the last one to be judging anybody for how they treated you in a single moment when you've been treating everyone like garbage for years, apparently, according to what everybody was saying in the show to that point. In the game, though, I'm a little more forgivable of this, but I'm also wondering what happened that night that would make her like this. Like, why would she be like this? So, I don't know. We'll see how it plays. We then get a nice little scene where Ellie sees Dina playing snowball fight with some other kids, and she wants to talk to Dina about what happened the night before, and Dina's like apologizing, like, I started it, and, I shouldn't have kissed you. I didn't want you to, clearly she's starting to say that she doesn't want Ellie to think about it too much, and Ellie's going like, oh, well, like, I didn't think much of it anyway. I knew you were just drunk and stuff. And they have a little bit of banter where Dina goes, you know what I love about you is how you always let me finish my sentences. Like, I like that. That was good. Like, calling her out. Somebody who calls Ellie out on her crap, which is, I don't recall a whole lot of Dina in the show doing that. Maybe it's just because I'm remembering how much people just let Ellie do whatever she wanted, basically. But this is nice. I like that she's calling Ellie out on this one little thing. But then they get into a snowball fight with the kids, and Ellie going like, I cannot stand this little kid. And so Dina's like, you want to go and fuck him up? Like, let's go. And so they have a snowball fight. It was cute. I like this scene. I would say that there weren't too many scenes in the show where we saw Ellie playing around with other kids or being positive with other kids. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a single one. Even in the flashbacks, all we really got was Ellie and Joel doing stuff together. And this kind of thing would have been nice to see. So I wish they did this in the show. But I don't think it adds a whole lot. Most that it adds is it creates a sense of community that isn't just the authorities. Like, this is a thriving community with kids obviously still being kids and stuff, which is basically what Ellie was offered by accepting Joel as her father figure. Like, he will be able to give her a chance at being a child again. And so we see that she's actually taken part in that. She's having a snowball fight here with a bunch of kids. We get the little scene of Jesse briefing the patrollers on where they're going, what they're going to do, what the procedure is, and everybody setting off. Again, the show took an opportunity there to display Ellie as being an unlikable, disrespectful character again, and they didn't do that in the game. So, like, already, even with just the little thing that she did that was obnoxious in the game, she's still mostly likable. She's still being portrayed as a mostly good person with just that slight discord note where we go, there's just like some tension there. There's just a bit of dissatisfaction on her part, but nothing so terrible that she's an unforgivable character. And already at this point in the show, she was displaying characteristics that were just like, you got to do a lot to make up for this stuff, girl. So I have to say, again, the show or the game is doing a much better job at making Ellie into a character that we like. And if you want a character who we definitely liked in the first game to become somebody we dislike, you should you should show that progression down, like that descent, the anti-hero's descent or the demonic hero's descent, where you see somebody who becomes corrupted, who gets worse and worse as the story goes on, and it'll be far more believable. By the time we got to when we got to season 2 in the show, even with the stuff that she did in season 1 that I didn't like, she ended up more likable than she did in the beginning of season 1. So when we got to season 2 and she was like this totally different character, I did not like her at all. I found her to be completely unrelatable and somebody I didn't want to succeed in doing anything. And that was a very bad choice on the part of the show. I know we've already discussed making your protagonist unlikable so that your antagonist can seem more likable and how that's a bad decision. But also I'm just thinking of the POV of the viewer. So as the viewer, she's the character we're following. And if we just want her to suffer and fail, and she's not, it's very difficult to keep on track with her and to be invested in what happens to her. And I know that people are going to go, oh, well, she does suffer at the end. But then the thing is, we haven't gotten a resolved story at the end of season 2. We are left with somebody who had to cause all this destruction, and now she feels sorry. And we didn't see a whole lot of evidence of self-reflection in the earlier parts of her story, so it suddenly appears in the final episode, which had so many other problems. There are too many other problems, really, to make the first or the second season, the HBO show, work at all. But as far as Ellie's likability is concerned, starting her out more likable and then descending into unlikability and then realizing this is the bad choice, I think would have been a far wiser choice for just the viewer experience. I do think as far as the game goes, it must be very odd playing this way, because in the show, it was basically you're Joel and you are fighting all these guys, getting from obstacle to obstacle. And here we got a lot of, well, we want you to follow Jesse across town, and then you're going to go and talk to this sandwich guy, and then you're going to have a conversation with Maria, and then you're going to have a snowball fight, and now you're going to go on patrol, and then we jump from that to Abby in waking up in the lodge. And I'm going, it must feel really weird to have had no real meaningful fights at this point. And in the video I'm watching, which is an 8.5-hour video, I'm about half an hour into it already, and I'm going, is this like a fighting game at all? Or is this just a walk through and be exposed to the game kind of thing? And it's very odd. I imagine that people did not feel very satisfied in this early part of the story, going, I didn't get to do a whole lot of killing. So I don't know. How did people react to this part? I don't know. But if I had played the first game and I enjoyed being able to fight all the infected and the raiders and whatnot, and then I got to this game and I'm half an hour in, and I'm going, we haven't killed anybody, and now we're introduced to a new character, and it doesn't look like she's going to be doing any killing because she just wakes up in this lodge, I'd certainly be wondering what the heck's going on. But I'd be like, why am I not with Joel and Tommy hunting infected in the forest right now? Because they're off on patrol somewhere, and Jesse's going to go and relieve them, supposedly. But I would have been wondering why I'm not there. I would have felt cheated out of my killing. We have an interesting scene with Abby and, I can't remember the name of this guy, but anyway, it's the guy who was awake before her, and there's a lot of information that is being conveyed to the game player without it being just blatantly told. And so this is actually very good writing. This is, so first of all, he's asking her, what did you dream about last night? And she's like, why was I talking in my sleep? And he's like, well, you're doing that teeth grinding thing. And then he wants to show her something. And so she follows him out. And apparently he had been up all night, or early enough that it was still night, that he's seen something or something. He wants to show her something. And she's like, wow, you did all this by yourself, like in the middle of the night? And he's like, I was restless. So you know that they're in a tense place themselves. Like all of that's being conveyed just through the kinds of things that they are talking about. So good job there. Then we also get who is who. So we saw that there were other people in this lodge that were asleep. We don't know who they are. They haven't woken up, but they start talking about somebody named Mel and Manny. You know, Manny apparently from Mexico, because she's like, well, do you want to go to straight on ahead to Mexico where, you know, and see Manny's hometown? And they're like, well, I doubt it's as great as Manny describes, you know, that I'm sure he inflated how cool it was or whatever. So we know that Manny loved where he came from. And then we also get that this guy dated somebody named Mel, and Mel's acting odd, and Abby is noticing that, you know, hey, are you and Mel breaking up? Because the two of them apparently are going out. Like, we get that they are in a relationship, but something's going on with Mel. Like, this is all good, like, especially since I've seen season 2 of the show, so I know Mel is pregnant. That is most likely what is going on, that she's acting odd because she's pregnant, and he knows about it and is like, it's nothing for you to worry about. We're not breaking up. And we also know that Abby used to date this guy because he says, don't you wish that we were breaking up? And she's like, I've had my fill. So obviously there was something between the two of these guys at one point. Like, this is all good. And then we also get that Abby has a fear of heights. So they're walking along this cliff edge and some snow falls off of it and she has sort of a panic attack. And this guy has to like, hey, look at me, come this way. This is good. Like, okay, so we've got Abby. We are establishing that she has this relationship with all these people without it being told to us. We are also given a weakness that she has. She's afraid of heights, and she relies on this guy a little bit and he knows to be there for her, guiding her across, or past this cliff's edge. Like, this is all nice that we're establishing what their relationships are through dialogue where none of the other people are involved, but it doesn't feel unnatural. This is just a continuation of the conversation that has been going on. The two of them obviously have their first moment where nobody else is around, so you can ask, Mel's been acting weird, what's going on? He's like, nothing's wrong. Like, this is how you do it. And nobody at any point had to say, I know that you've been dating Mel for, 2 years now, but don't you think in the last couple weeks she's been acting a little odd? They didn't have to say anything like that. We understand just from what we extrapolate from the dialogue. Like, okay, obviously these two used to go out. Obviously Mel is acting strange, and this guy is like, you got nothing to worry about, and he's a reliable sort of person. He's obviously adventurous. He goes off on his own in the middle of the night and does stuff. Like, this is all good. And then we get a weakness in Abby, that she's afraid of heights, making her into the human character. This is all good so far. No complaints. I like this. I kind of wish the show did this. Okay, so another thing that the game is doing that's better than what the show did is it is portraying Abby as more like the leader, simply in how other people defer to her and the proactive stance that she takes that doesn't seem completely wild. This guy took her to go and look at Jackson, just like we had when they woke up in the show and they see it out the window, but everybody sees it all at once. And he is explaining to her, well, first of all, he tells her, like, they've got armed patrols. They obviously know what they're doing. They're an entire city, basically. How are we going to get to him? We don't know who him is. It doesn't matter, though. He's presenting all the problems, and she's coming up with a solution. And it's not a detailed solution, but at least she was the one who came up with it. And she goes, look, we'll corner one of the patrols, and we'll get them to tell us. And he's like, how? Like, what, do you think they're just going to tell us? She's like, well, make them. And he's like, all right, do you hear yourself? So we're also establishing that they have a moral code and that she is not likely to be the one to suggest this, but here she is at this point making the suggestion. And then he reveals that Mel is pregnant, and everybody is going to not want to go through with this once they see this city. And so I do actually like that the show had everybody see it and go like, what the hell are we doing? But I don't like how Abby was handled in that moment, because I didn't believe that she would be the leader of all these guys. This kind of, just by separating her from everybody else, it gives the sense that she is more of the leader type, because she was the one who came up with what we'll do. How will we figure out where he is in there? She didn't defer to this guy like, well, you'll figure out a way for us to get in there, won't you? Which, come to think of it, is basically exactly what Ellie did later on in the show when she turned to Dina and was like, you're going to figure out how to get us into the WLFs, right? You'll figure out a way to get us in there. And then Dina's like, I'm going to try. It's weird. What a weird choice to make, to make them both seem like they're not great leaders. I mean, it's much better when you have somebody who's out for revenge. I mean, I know what Abby's doing here. I know what this whole group is doing here. People watching this do not know what's going on, but even if you don't know what's going on, you still know or get a sense that Abby is the one leading the way simply because she was the one who was like the problem solver. We're going to go in there, we're going to do this thing, and this will help us through. And then you have this other guy presenting the problems with the vagueness of her plan, or what she's truly, presenting to her what she's truly proposing. And then anyway, he leaves, he decides he's going to go back, and she's like, you know what, screw it. And she's going to go off on her own. I also liked that better than her being like, I'm going to go out on patrol, and then her whole gang is left behind, and we hear a snippet of them going, yeah, we're going to try and convince her not to go. Like, they're already going against her. It sort of shows her as being a weaker leader, somebody who they don't really want to follow. In this case, simply not having those others on screen in the game helped us to not see that there's a flaw in her leadership, because this is a private conversation between her and this number 2 guy who's, what the freak is his name? Owen. Owen is his name. So this is a trick in what you reveal to your audience, how you limit what their perspective is so that it sort of manipulates your audience's perception of things. And just by having the others not present to express their doubt, and then for them to go their separate ways, and for us to see Owen's conversation with everybody else left behind, everybody's going like, this is insane, like nobody's going to do this, and for her to go off on her own, it does present Abby as being somebody who I believe less would be followed by all of these people. Like, that they would see this and just like, hell no way, we're going to try and convince her not to go. This is a private conversation between her and Owen, discussing what the possible solutions are, what the problems are with those solutions. It just portrays this as being somebody who, they wouldn't express this in front of her. This is not a conversation that people would have around her. And yes, I know that they all discussed that when she was off screen, but there is something that happens when you have, obviously Owen is a kind of a leader, or he's like a number 2 in this situation. I'm thinking of, I don't know, I'm a Star Trek fan, so I always think of Riker. But this is a conversation that 2 people who are regarded as leaders would have off stage together or privately together, because you don't do this sort of thing in front of everybody. And just the rest of the gang expressing their doubts and like, we are so screwed in front of Abby shows a lack of faith in her ability for everybody to get in there. By reducing how many people are exposed to this possibility and express doubt in it, we don't see the ridiculousness of it as being something super obvious. I mean, yes, it's obvious, I suppose you could say, just by common sense, like how are they going to do this? But the fact that they had this as a private conversation does prevent the ridiculousness of what she wants to do from being completely obvious to everybody. Also, I didn't like in the show how she decided she was going to go off and get these patrollers that she just happened to see. I like here, though, in the game that it seems to be a conscious decision. Like, screw it. If they're not going to do it, I'm going to do it on my own. Anyway, we're going to just move on. Keep going. I got to keep going. Talking too much. Okay, it is super creepy when Abby is like, she's going to go and she's going to get one of the patrollers by herself. Like, she's like, screw it, I'm going to do this on my own. She does seem stronger in this choice than what we saw in the show, which is like, she's out on lookout and then happens to see some patrollers and then like, I guess I'll go after them. I didn't like how that, when it was okay when it happened in the show, but when I compare it to this is still stronger. This portrays a stronger character. She's like determined, I'm going to go and do this, even if I have to go and do it on my own. And even though we kind of look at it and go, you're stupid, the fact that she does it as like a conscious decision before she even sets out, that just shows, to me, that just portrays her at least as having more confidence in herself. She seemed pretty self-conscious in the show. But it's so creepy when she comes across some frozen infected. Like, at one point, there's one that's sitting on the ground and then she's squeezing through a crevice, and there's another one that's just like standing there and they're frozen and she has to like shove them out of the way. It does make me wonder, and I think somebody in my comments mentioned it from when I reviewed episode 2 of the show. These infected who are under the snow, they still should have been like frozen solid. If it's been below freezing for a long enough period of time, how are they not like totally frozen through. I mean, limbs should be breaking off of them at a certain point, depending on how cold it is. But I think pretty darn cold, especially when you're in the middle of a snowstorm. But yeah, it's just something to think about. Like, can the human body without like a coat and external warmth actually sustain itself? And I know like, oh, well, they were under the snow and they created like so they're all under there, moving around to like stay warm? Don't they have to eat in order to have the energy? Whatever. This is my science fiction brain going too far into it. Don't think about it too much. It certainly helps with the appearance of competence that we have Abby come across some infected who are still conscious and able to move, and she beats all of them. Obviously, it's the game player is supposed to do it, but you're supposed to play through this, so it's intended that she shows that she is competent enough to be able to kill all these guys. So again, I don't recall Abby in the show doing anything that seemed all that competent at this point. So anyway, we leave Abby finding the trail of the patrollers, but not catching up to them just yet. And then we jump over to Ellie and Dina. And they're doing something here that I wish they had done in the game as well, which is acknowledging the fact that it's weird that Ellie was unaware of what Dina's relationship status was. She's asking her, first of all, like, hey, do you ever see yourself and Jesse ever getting back together again? And she's like, no, like, it wasn't really our thing. Like, we were basically on autopilot. She's like, I like Jesse, I like his family, but it wasn't like the thing. And then Dina is asking Ellie about her relationship with Kat. Like, we didn't talk to you guys about that. And Dina had strong opinions about Ellie's relationship with Kat, saying like, I liked that her art. I think she's a great artist. I like, your tattoos kind of growing on me. She's like, but I didn't think that she was right for you. Now, in the show, they didn't acknowledge that there was there was no communication between the two of them. They just were on patrol and they were talking about their relationships and stuff. And it was as if Ellie had never asked Dina anything about her relationships. And we're just supposed to kind of accept that that's the way that it is, which is very odd for two people who are supposed to be very close and best friends, and they live in such a tiny, tiny town. If you've ever lived in a small town, which I have, things like that do not remain secret for very long. Everybody knows everybody's business. So it was just very odd for Ellie to not have any awareness of Dina's relationship status, and then it comes across as she never cared. Like, she never cared to know anything about Dina's personal life or be invested in caring about it, if that makes sense. Here, they're at least giving the reason for why that is. Why didn't we ever talk about your relationship with Jesse and, why it didn't work out and all this stuff? Ellie asks, how come we've never talked about this stuff before? And Dina's like, I don't know. You never really talked to me about you and Kat. And Ellie's like, yeah, there wasn't really anything to talk about. Basically, they were establishing that the relationships that they had before, even though they were in relationships, even though Dina was in this long-term relationship with Jesse and Ellie was in this relationship with Kat, they were never really serious about it. So they never had the desire to talk about their own relationships with each other. And then there was sort of a mutual respect. Yeah, this is extrapolation. That there was, well, I don't talk about my stuff, or she doesn't talk about her relationship, so I'm not going to ask. And I don't really talk about my stuff, so I don't expect her to ask me. And they're acknowledging here that was kind of weird of us. So I just appreciate that more than ignoring that it would be very weird for two people who are supposed to be super close, never talking about their relationships or not keeping each other abreast of what the situation is. Because at the time with Dina and Ellie going on patrol, Dina and Jesse had been broken up for a while, like at least a week, maybe it was 2 weeks, I can't remember, but I was like, really? You've gone that long without knowing that they were broken up? That's just weird. But if they did what they're doing here in the game, they're showing that, well, these weren't exactly serious relationships anyway, and they're still kind of on friendly terms with each other anyway, then maybe it would be something that, since they don't talk about it, it just wouldn't really come up, because it's just like, well, this is just the way things are. Things aren't going to feel all that different on the outside, so maybe people didn't talk about it as much. I still would have been calling into question, this is a small town, don't they gossip? Because every small town gossips. But anyway, you get the idea. Something I brought up in my Game 1 review was that it seemed there were phases of character relationship development that, were blocked in these periods. And I'm wondering if we're starting to see that happening now in game 2. where we've got Dina takes Ellie to the top of this radio tower and shows her a view. And you can see that at one point, Ellie notices Dina looking at her, and it's ambiguous as to whether or not this is flirtatious, but we can see that it has sort of affected Ellie, and she's just going like, well, she says, F***. But then she tries to move us along, like, hey, let's go into the radio tower and sign in or whatever. And they find a bong, and Dina mentions that the person she used to go on patrol of this particular route with was Eugene, so we get the first indication of who Eugene is. Apparently he always had weed on him and supplied her with this bong, which is, it's Dina's bong. So I guess they would come here and smoke some weed together, which, I mean, not very responsible, but at least it's showing that the two of them had this bond. They're talking about how funny he was. And then we get Dina commenting that, Ellie, are you wearing the same clothes you were wearing yesterday? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, what, you know, they're I'm not trying to impress anybody out here. We're out here to kill infected. And it's like, good enough for that. And she's like, no, I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying you still look nice. You know, it's like complimenting her a little bit. We're sort of starting to see that maybe there was something more to what was going on the previous night when apparently Dina kissed Ellie, and we're starting to see the indications of that. So I'm wondering where they're going to take this phase to, but I'm expecting that that's what the focus of this little phase is going to be, is that we're going to get a very strong indication that Dina actually does like Ellie, and that wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a just spontaneous act in the moment of drunkenness the night before that she kissed Ellie. So we get Ellie and Dina talking about Eugene, and Ellie brings up that Eugene died of old age. So this is a definite change from, or this has obviously been changed for the show. And if they were going to do something to create, like, Joel did something bad and it had to do with somebody, then doing it with a character that we have some familiarity with is a good choice. And here they obviously had this character who people mention, and if they're going to do the same thing with Joel, I don't know if they're going to. For them to say, okay, well, we'll make it somebody who has a bigger role in the story, like, okay, let's do Eugene. I still think that they should have introduced Eugene and what his story was a little bit sooner, like what happened with Joel, but honestly, there were so many other problems with what they did in season 2 that just that one change would not have been enough to save the second season. But also, Ellie mentions that she and Joel have plans for that night to watch Curtis and Viper. We have not established, at least on screen for the viewer or the gamer to witness, that there's a real major problem between her and Joel, which minimizes how bad it is in our view. Obviously, there was some sort of a confrontation that happened the night before, and people are like, dude, what was up with that? And she's like, oh, it's nothing. And how do we know it's nothing? Because right here, she's talking about, no, we're going to watch a movie tonight. Like, we've got plans. And I'm like, oh, okay. This does not portray the conflict between Joel and Ellie as being that serious, because we did not witness anything that made us go, what the heck is going on between the two of them? It's really bad. Whereas in the show, seeing that play out, I think was a bad choice. It makes us, it's like they're really trying to get this, like there's something really bad going on between them. So that way, when we get the reveal that actually they made up that night, it feels like, haha, you didn't know, which is, there's so many problems with that. But the thing is I think that this was a better choice because it doesn't feel like there's an alien sort of situation going on here that we don't understand fully. And we're not going to get that moment later on where it's like, haha, we were tricking you. Things are actually okay between them. It won't feel as cheap because we didn't do that. We didn't create something that was unfamiliar to us. We already saw that there was a little bit of conflict between them. It wasn't so bad. Anything that was really bad between them happened off screen, so it doesn't affect us that much. We're just kind of going, well, I guess it was something that was awkward. Not what the hell happened. Why was Ellie so terrible to Joel in that moment? Because we didn't see it, we didn't feel it as strongly. And this is something I talk about in my reviews a lot, and I have to make this critique with my clients quite a bit, which is if it doesn't happen on page, or in this case on screen, it might as well not have happened at all as far as the viewers or readers' feelings are concerned, because we didn't experience the moment with those characters. So we didn't see it for ourselves and go, wow, that was horrific. So usually that's a bad thing. But in this case, I think this was a good thing because it didn't create a sense of like, why are they acting so bizarre? So when they made the choice to actually show it in the show, that I think was the bad decision, because then it seems like the only reason why they do that is so that they can have this aha, they actually forgave each other in the end. I think it would have been better maybe if they just showed all of that beforehand. Like, they have problems, it gets really bad, but then they make up, sort of. They have their little talk on the porch, and then they decide we're going to watch some movies together. Like, to have gone through that little journey with them together, I think would have been more satisfying, because you've gone through the ups and the downs of their relationship. Something big and impactful that is a major point of conflict for these two characters has been confronted and somewhat resolved to the point that they get along again, and they still have expressed that they love each other and want to be together. And then we have the loss. So anyway, let's keep going. Then we get this nice infected killing adventure with Dina and Ellie, and we see that they only do the knife killing them thing. Like, they actually give a reason for that. So in the show, they put away their pistols and pull out their daggers. Like, yeah, let's go in there with our daggers, which is like, I'm not sure exactly why you would want to go in with your least effective weapon. Like, you have to get the closest to your enemy with your dagger. And it really came across as we like knifing these guys in the neck, and not as like, this is something that we have to do. And in the game, they've made it very obvious, because she plain out says it. They fall into an area where there's a bunch of clickers. Remember, they're very sensitive to sound, and they're like, okay, there's several of them. We obviously need to take them out, but we don't want to attract all of their attention at once. So we have to kill them quietly. So they put away their pistols and take out their daggers. Like, they're doing it for a very specific reason. And before you say, well, that's obviously why they were doing it in the show, it wasn't obvious to me. I'd never seen the game before, so I didn't have that bit of information to go off of. I mean, to me, I would have been like, yeah, it really would be important that they don't attract the attention of others, except that also in the show, there was only one clicker that we could see. Apparently there were two, but they only show you one. And then they're like, okay, well, there was a second one because that's the one that Ellie jumped on. And I'm like, I only saw one clicker at a time. Now, they should have shown two at a time, or they should have shown Ellie taking hers down and then cut over to Dina taking hers down so we could see there was more than one. But I watched that scene like 4 or 5 times because I couldn't understand what the heck their sign language meant. And I was completely unable to tell that there was more than one. I thought it was just one clicker. And I'm like, so they go in there. Obviously, Dina was like, there was 2 in there. And I'm like, I only saw 1. So shouldn't there be another one? It was not clear to me at all that there were 2, and they both took them down. But here it's there's much better reason for why you wouldn't go in and shoot them. You don't want to attract the attention of the others. Well, if there's only 2, and you're going to go in and you're going to shoot one and shoot the other, why would you be all like, whoa, we should kill them with our daggers, not with our guns, because we don't want to attract others. If there's only 2, you're not worried about attracting others. It really came across hard in the show that they pulled out their daggers to kill them with that, because that's more fun. So, I don't know. Anyway, I much prefer what they did here in the game so far, at least with this scene here is concerned. Then Dina and Ellie make it into some sort of a watchtower or something, and they discover this was like one of Eugene's places, like where he lived or something. Anyway, and Ellie finds the dog tag that shows that he was a Firefly, and she's like, wow, I didn't know he was a Firefly. And she's like, yeah, he and Tommy were together, and they did some pretty crazy stuff. And I guess they slow tortured some Fedra general or something. And Ellie's like, well, they could have done a lot worse. I know that he and Tommy did a bunch of bad stuff when they were together. And Ellie pulls out her journal. And we can see that she's talking about what the events that happened the night before. And it's like, this is the confirmation. Ellie has a huge crush on Dina. And she's like, I keep reading into things that aren't, real. Like, she touched my arm, and oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I'm delusional. She does that to everybody. So I liked that. I like that we got that little bit of confirmation. And she adds the note, was Eugene in touch with other Fireflies? Did he hear about me and Joel? No, he would have said something. I like that's like an introduction of a mystery. Like, she wonders if... So this is also an indication that Ellie knows what, or to some degree, knows that they must remember me and Joel. Like, we did something. Like, this is a good, strong hint. Obviously, if you haven't seen to the end of the game or played to the end of the game or seen the show, you would wonder, oh, does that mean, like, did all the Fireflies know that Ellie was immune and Joel was escorting her to Salt Lake City or whatever. And then after watching this whole game or watching the whole show, you would come back to this on a second watch and it would actually mean something else. It would mean, did he know that Joel killed a bunch of people in the hospital to save me from the Fireflies? And her asking, no, he would have said something. Obviously he would have, because like, you killed all of my former comrades. This is actually good rereadability. Or reconsumable content. So where you experience one thing the first time that you watch it or you read it, and then when you go back and watch it again or read it again, it has some more depth to it. It has something different to it. It alters your perspective of the way things were. I like this. This is good. Then we also see she comes across a letter to Eugene from obviously his wife, because it's talking about how there's, I know that the Fireflies want to go off and save the world. Fine, let them. Maybe we'll see the fruits of that work, where they get to they get to develop a vaccine and we all get to, live more freely. Like, but your daughter needs you. She will not be okay without you. The Fireflies will be okay without you. And I like how this is a reflection of her own situation. This is a father making a choice for the benefit of a daughter, which is what Joel did in the previous season. So again, everybody keeps telling me that the game portrays what Joel did in season 1 as the wrong thing to do. And I'm wondering if this is where we're going to see the introduction of that theme, that exploration of that theme, like sacrificing your child for the greater good. Like, is that what a parent should do? The only thing I find odd about this letter is that this town is not very far away from Jackson. So it's, I don't know, maybe this is like something that he stored at this particular location, but this isn't where he received the letter. Not that you would receive it, like, what, is there a postman that delivers this here? Like, oh, no. Actually, how did he get this letter? Was it just handed to him? In that case, why wasn't it just said to him? I don't know. A little odd. Someone explain that to me. Is there like a postal system here that I'm missing? Obviously, if you knew somebody was going to be going to another group, okay, I'm here with the Fireflies here, and there's another outpost over across the state or whatever, and you're going to be heading that way. I have a letter for you to deliver to one of the guys over there. I could see that happening. But to be within not even a couple hours, maybe on horseback ride to this place, like you would write a letter to there, I don't know, it doesn't seem like please come home. How about just come home tonight for dinner? I don't know. Obviously, I think it's more than likely that this is something that he has stored here, but that this wasn't where he received the letter. Otherwise, that would be a little odd. Just ignore that whole comment there. That was me thinking out loud. Okay, but then there is a bit that doesn't make sense. So they're going down into the basement, and at one point, Ellie makes the joke that, oh, this must be where his sex den is. And Dina's like, I hope it's a sex den. Poor guy was so lonely. So what, he didn't go back to his family and his family is not in Jackson? A little confused. Maybe maybe he did get the letter here in Jackson. Maybe his family's not in Jackson. Okay, that would make the letter make more sense. So that this would be the indication that his family is not in Jackson, that he did not return to his family wherever they are, but it's not here. That's what I'm taking from this. I'm thinking out loud again. I definitely like better how this is playing out in the game here. So we get Ellie and Dina discovering Eugene's weed farm where he was growing a bunch of weed, and they decide to smoke a joint because we're trapped here, we might as well. Then Dina brings up that thing that she brought up in the show while they were on their way to go get revenge. And that was not the appropriate place to be having conversations like this. This is like a girls' night kind of question, not a we're on a mission of revenge kind of thing. Look, you can say all you want, well, it's more realistic that not every single moment of their journey was about revenge. Yes, but the thing is that a movie or TV show, a game, it's not going to be an exact replica of what real life is. And I know I've said this about animation to live action, where animation is a caricature of real life. It is a representation of what happens in life, but it is not an exact replica. Live action is closer to replica, but still a representation of what happens in real life. There is a reason why people do not read for pleasure. At least most people do not read for pleasure, stream of consciousness literature. This is where basically you're just getting somebody's random thoughts. There's no plot. It's literally just whatever goes through their mind throughout a day or several days or whatever. is because there's nothing to get invested in or to follow along in, because people's lives do not follow a logical progression. We do not see that there's meaning in the things that they do, but we expect this in storytelling, and this is that kind of storytelling. So to have that happen in the show on the journey of revenge, it takes away from the potency and importance of the revenge quest, and it makes it feel like they're on a girls' trip. Like they could have been on a camping trip on 4th of July weekend. Like it doesn't follow with the mood. It doesn't enhance the importance of their mission. It just takes away from it. But here, nothing really bad has happened yet to Ellie and Joel and Dina. We've just got everyday life. And so they're having this everyday girls by ourselves. Like first time we're going to be holed up together since that awkward kiss that happened the night before. Why don't we just talk about it here? This is so much more natural. This is such a more natural place to put this conversation. It's really odd to me that anybody watched season 2 and said, yes, that revenge mission was spot on, man. It did not feel like a revenge mission at all. I'm expecting it to be much better in the game because we're doing all this here instead of there. And yeah, so this is the end of the Ellie and Dina, maybe Dina's got feelings for you kind of phase. I'm actually really enjoying these phases of storytelling going on in the game. But it goes down a little bit differently, but it still makes so much more sense. So basically, Ellie is the one who Dina is the one who rates Ellie's kiss as a 6, and Ellie's like, whatever. And you can see that Dina is coming on pretty strong, like going, like, do you really think it was a 6? And, I don't know. I don't need to go into the details. You guys have seen the game. If not, I'm sure I'm displaying the footage here. But it just progresses so much more naturally. You can feel the tension, like the sexual tension and the emotional tension being built up here to the point that, like, we're going to kiss again, and it better be better than a 6. And the next thing you know, they're making out, they kind of lean over on the couch, and blackout, we know they bang. This is the appropriate place for this to happen, and it was so much better in being earned than in the show. I did not believe for a second anyone would feel like banging after what they just were through and what was just outside the glass doors that they just went in through. Like, oh, so awkward. This is the appropriate place for this to happen. It was a very bad choice on the part of the writers to put it in the show where they did. This is it. This is much better. I have to applaud. Yes, if you're going to have these two get to the point where they're banging, this is where you do it. Before there's a need for revenge, which should be the primary focus of your characters. Because up until now, this has just been about Ellie living her daily life. And then we had the introduction at the moment Jesse knocked on the door is when this phase began, because it was the introduction of something slightly off happened the night before where there was a kiss and it was his girlfriend and Ellie felt awkward about it. And here is the conclusion to that phase. So even where I thought the phase started, like when they went out on patrol together, it was actually before that where all of this came together. We've been building up to this particular moment and it was well done. So good job, HBO. Why didn't you do this? No one would have been complaining if this is how you did it. I do think it's kind of cheap when video games and movies and shows insert a lot of sex into their storytelling, especially if it's targeted towards like a younger audience. I feel like it's used because they think, well, this will really draw them in. And then what you get is an unearned relationship. You get people who are banging just so that they can bang and people can go, ooh, there's banging in this game or there's banging in this show. But here I actually felt like they earned it at this point. There was almost a full hour before we got to this point, and there was plenty of tension built up between the two of them. I could have enhanced it a little bit more if I wanted, but that's not really the focus of this game, so I'm fine with exactly the way that they did it. And it was much better than what they did in the show, which to me was so out of place. I really couldn't have anything nice to say about what they did in the show with the bang in there. It would have been nice if it happened in a less awkward moment because then it might have felt earned. So I don't really know why the show decided to do that. It's almost like they don't understand that whether you're gay or straight, you kind of want your romances to be earned. We get basically the same thing going with Abby and Joel that happened in the show, where he rescues her just as she's coming out from this fallen gate that a bunch of infected are climbing up on top of. And then he meets up with Tommy, and the two of them, well, three of them actually, are all escaping together. We get them working together, which is great. The difference here is we had Joel in the show, we had Joel and Dina talking to each other, and that's kind of where we got their names. And then in the game, we have Tommy turning right to Abby and introducing them like, I'm Tommy, that's Joel. It is a little bit odd that Tommy would so openly like, hey, this is who we are, but it's also a panicked moment and they've all worked together in these last few minutes to survive together, so I can kind of excuse this. But what I don't like in the game that they did do well in the show is at the moment of realizing that is Joel, we got in the show a reaction from Abby where it's like, and obviously we knew the context, we understood why, but I don't know why they didn't do that here except to have it be more shocking when we get the reveal later that this is the person that she was actually after. We did have a moment after the conversation where she kind of pauses and seems out of it, but it's very easy to read that as like, oh, she's just, a little weirded out about like, I just almost died and these guys have saved me and now I guess I have to trust them and go with them, which does work on its own, except that it didn't happen right after the revelation of this is Joel. Like that should have hit her like she should have felt like somebody clocked her on top of the head, because that would be a huge moment for her, especially since it's been 4 years. Well, I think more than 4 years. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been at least 4 years since she's lost her father, and this is the guy she's been after. This is the guy she's obsessed over, supposedly. So I think I would have liked to have had that moment there, and maybe we don't know if she's reacting specifically to Joel or to Tommy, but to her, like something hits her at that moment. I don't think it would have taken too much away from the shocking moment later, but anyway, it is an attempt to use perspective in the way that you want to manipulate the audience's perspective and the information that they have. But I don't think that putting it where they put it is as realistic as the moment Joel's name is said, something hits her. And I think we could still read it as she's in a state of shock from something else that has happened. I would have liked to have seen that. Actually, I would have liked to have seen where they have a moment of reaction from her, and maybe it's just the camera on her face, so we don't see her looking at any one of them in particular. We just see like a shocked expression, and we can go, what's that about? I don't know if that would have made a huge difference in hinting to the audience she's here for Joel, or she's here for revenge on one of these guys. Well, we know that she's here for somebody, and yeah, anyway, I think that's it. I rewound the scene a little bit just to see if there was any kind of reaction from Abby, and there is. She kind of like looks and then sort of has to like this, but there wasn't that use of camera work to make it into a dramatic moment. And the thing is if you can use the camera in order to create there's something about this particular moment, but deceive your audience into believing it's about something else, that is far more clever than having something that happens that you might not even notice if you're watching because you're using a wide shot that encompasses Abby, Tommy, and Joel all in the same shot, where it's like you have to really watch Abby's reaction in this particular moment. That's not as clever. That's like hiding the clue in a way that it's not even brought up as something that should be paid attention to. It's something that you would really only see if you're looking for it or if you're watching Abby specifically. And it does work. It's just not as clever or sophisticated as the other option, which is what they actually did in the show. Unfortunately, in the show, we knew what the moment was about. We knew that she was going, oh my gosh, that's Joel. That's why I'm here. Not saying what they did was bad or worse, just wanted to point out this little trick of what you're doing. And the same thing happens in writing if you're writing a manuscript, where drawing attention to something but manipulating your audience into believing that the thing that you should notice about this is one thing, only to later discover that actually it was something else. It's a little bit more clever that way. It means that you really worked hard on manipulating your audience and getting them to believe in something in one direction. Anyway, that's another discussion. Abby joining up with Joel and Tommy and this fight for survival that they have, which was way more than what we got in the show, and it wasn't even Abby with Joel and Tommy, it was Abby with Joel and Dina. But it does make me wonder if there's a sort of a sense of camaraderie that is created in the game player because they're working together to survive. And since you don't know that Abby's mission is revenge to kill Joel, you just think she's looking for somebody, and obviously it's not for a good reason, but you just know she's looking for somebody. I wonder if that's almost forgotten or put like in the back of the mind, like the most important thing happening here is that we want Abby to join this team, Joel and Tommy. I don't know, if you were a gamer and you played this, was that at all something that was created in you, a want for these characters to work together? So Tommy and Joel are talking about how we can't stay here forever, they're gonna get through, or they're gonna come around like we're screwed. And then Abby goes, wait, there's a mansion nearby, my friends are there, it's all fenced off, we have the perimeter secured. And so the two guys are like, well, yeah, that's the old Baldwin place or whatever, it doesn't matter. And they're like, okay, that's where we'll go. And they all mount up and they run off just as the horde comes after them. Now, I will say this, even if I didn't hear this a bunch of times in my comments, people saying like, why did Tommy and Joel trust her so much? I would still be suspicious in this situation. I'd be like, why are Joel and Tommy like, oh, wait, you have a bunch of friends that have secured a mansion, which we are aware of, and it's all fenced off and everything. First, I want to know, why were you separated from them? And then I would want to know, who the hell are you and why are you here? And that would have been something I would have asked immediately. And if her response was at all suspicious, I mean, even if it wasn't, you still would be suspicious. You would be like majorly cautious in going towards a group of people. And she was armed and clearly had, like, why was she out on her own? It's very odd that they would just like, okay, that's where we'll go. The only excuse that was given here is that there's a horde that's literally coming right after them. So it's like a desperate situation, we need to get somewhere, but they do have horses. So wherever they go, they're gonna outrun this horde anyway. I know in the show they were like, well, the horde runs just as fast as the horses. That was terrible. If you watch that scene, it looks ridiculous. Like the people on foot, no matter how much endurance they have, cannot outrun a horse. I'm sorry, especially through snow. So a little bit of forced, let's get everybody to this location. It's not the worst thing ever, but it could have been smoothed over. How would I have smoothed it over? Well, I would just have Abby lie. Just have Abby lie about why they're there and what they're doing. That's all. Oh, yeah, then we get to Dina and Ellie chatting on the couch in their undies and talking about their different scars. And Ellie shows Dina her chemical burn on her arm and says that she did it herself to cover a bite mark. And she did that because she learned when she was 14 that she's actually immune. And Dina doesn't believe her and is teasing her about it. She's like, hey, I told you a true story about my scar on my stomach. And, you know, like, you want a bite mark for real? And then they hear somebody come in. And of course it's Jesse. So he walks in on the two of them in their underwear and they're quickly zipping up their pants and trying to get dressed. Oh man. I think I would have liked to have actually seen how awkward that is in live action. That would have actually been kind of funny, but they didn't have this scene here. They had it when they were already on their mission of revenge, so. Anyway, Jesse delivers the message that he waited for Joel and Tommy at the lookout where they were supposed to be for an hour and they didn't show up. So they're obviously like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. So they're gonna go off and look for Tommy and Joel now all together, all three of them. So another note about Jesse coming in here and telling them about Tommy and Joel being missing and not being at their post, and they're going to go and look for them now. And Jesse was unable to cover all the ground where, like, their region or whatever. And so Ellie is the one who says, why don't we all split up? Between all of us, we can cover the entire thing in like a couple hours. And then Jesse's like, okay, fine. And then he gives the directions, you go this way, I'll go this way, and then we'll all meet at the tower. Ellie already is more of a contributing member as far as just strategic smarts are concerned, which is something we never got from her in the show. It really seems so deliberate that they made her completely incompetent and a pain in the ass. I do not understand the logic of that decision. I can't see how it was an accident because it was so consistent with her character throughout the entire season 2 of HBO's show. We jump again over to Tommy, Joel, and Abby, and they arrive at the mansion, and her friends are there. They've got the iron gate open, and then they quickly close it before the horde can get in, and then one of them throws a Molotov cocktail at them, and that did the job so fast. But it's definitely a good idea in the show that they made them a little more resilient to fire. Like, I don't even think that human beings, without the enhancement of being fungus, would survive a little bit longer with fire. I really do think that fungus people would run away from fire. Like they would see that fire's there and take off, but maybe they did and I didn't notice it. But either way, that would be like the ultimate weapon then, is just to have a flamethrower and a Molotov cocktail with you. How fast that got rid of everybody that was at the gate. So everybody goes into the mansion and, Joel and Tommy are like, hey, you got brushes and, something, towel to wipe off the horses or whatever. It doesn't matter. And then they're like, hey, what are you guys doing here? Like, how long have you been here? Oh, we've only been here one night. Like, what are you doing? Well, we're just passing through. This is very casual, and it does feel out of character for all of the caution that we were led to believe people should have of each other in the previous season. I know that there's going to be people who say, well, we're trying to establish that the people in Jackson are, more complacent. They've grown accustomed to just everything's fine. I don't believe that, though. There would have to be a very good reason for that to happen, because Jackson being a sort of a haven, a safe haven, even where people have food, have protection, they're able to live without the fear of being attacked or overrun by the infected, you would think that the fear of people being secretly raiders would always be in the back of people's minds whenever they come across strangers. And Tommy and Joel are in a very vulnerable position. They come across all these young people who they've never seen before, and to not be suspicious of them is very awkward. So I would have just written this, if this was my script, a little bit differently. Make them more cautious, make them wanting to know more about who these people are. And that whole complaint is just amplified by when Tommy's introducing himself and then says, that's my brother, and Joel goes, and I'm Joel. And then everybody just like pauses and like looks at him, and he's like, y'all act like you've heard of us before. They shouldn't have drawn attention to that moment, but anyway, I'm just trying to think about what it would be like being a gamer, not knowing why they are here, and then Joel introducing himself and everybody reacting. Obviously, we're going to know they are here for him. And because of the setup before, where we heard that they're looking for somebody and they're going to trap somebody and they're going to the patrollers and they're going to threaten them, like that was the plan that was just thrown out there but not really settled on. We know that they're up to no good. So this must have been the first moment where tension is established. These guys are not here for a good reason, and they are here for Joel. But yeah, so Abby shoots out Joel's knee, and then Tommy starts to jump into attack, but the others pile onto him, and one of the girls like clocks him in the temple with her pistol a bunch of times. Like, the guy's gonna have serious brain damage after this. But I actually like that better than the whole we're gonna put you to sleep thing. Looking back on what happened in the show, it's extremely awkward. In a place where a medication like this would be so rare, you would use some sort of a sedative to, put Dina to sleep? It's just a very bizarre way to go about this. Like, why did they even have that stuff with them? I don't know. But this to me is more believable, that they knock Tommy unconscious, even though he should have severe brain damage or at least some sort of a concussion after this. The way this goes down here is more believable than what we had happen in the show. I like how brief this is, that Abby they basically get Joel up against the wall and she goes, take a guess at who we are. And he kind of looks at her and seems to like be thinking, and then just says, why don't you just give me whatever speech it is that you've got and get this over with? And then she has them tourniquet his leg, and then she looks around and pulls up the golf club. I like how brief that is. Playing out the villain's speech really long is very cliche. It doesn't feel realistic. And when you say a lot, the things that could have been unsaid open the possibility to a lot more. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but basically this: less is more. Say less and leave the possibilities open to the conclusions and the imaginings of your audience. And it's always going to create far more mystery and have a stronger impact than if they just get up there and tell you everything that's going on. I can't recall if it was at this point in the show where we even had Joel starting to nod along with everything that they were saying, like, yep, okay, I deserve this. Like, that was so bizarre to me. I do not really understand why that is. And I know people are going to say, well, because Joel did a bunch of bad things. Well, he did not in the show. In the show, he did not do bad things. He did things that were not great, but they weren't for bad reasons. He didn't do anything evil. He did, how do I explain that? I've already said that a bunch of times. I never saw him do anything that I would categorize as evil. I saw him doing things that were not pretty, but were necessary for survival. And I don't mean you have to kill this person so you can steal their food. I mean, that person's going to try and kill me, so I better kill them so they don't kill me. That was not Joel being somebody who did bad stuff just in passing, saying like, oh, he did a lot of bad stuff in the olden days. That doesn't reinforce the idea that he actually did bad things. You want to show these things. And the game did a good job of showing that, the first game that is. I think if I was a gamer and didn't know who Abby is, which you wouldn't at this point, or like what her real story is, I would assume that Joel is sitting there worried that these people are here to torture me because they want to know where Ellie is. Like, they somehow found out about Ellie and they know I have her. So this is a torture situation where I'm not going to be killed, but I'm going to be tortured. And that's why they tourniqueted my knee, because they don't want me to get away, but they also don't want me to die. This is a much better setup, because in the show, they made it very obvious from the start, because she plain old says, you killed my dad. This is revenge. This is her coming to torture you and kill you because you killed her dad. This isn't about getting Ellie. So all the people in my comments for that episode, the show episode where they kill Joel, and they're saying, hey, he died to protect Ellie. I did not get that sense at all. And it's for this reason. And maybe the thoughts were from the people who were making those comments that, well, in the game, that was definitely a strong possibility. Well, I can see that from the game. But in the show, that was not set up properly because they had Abby reveal right away why she's there. If they didn't have the whole opening scene of Abby and the WL, that gang standing there around the cemetery and saying, we're going to go kill Joel, and then telling Joel once they found him, you killed my dad, and then him realizing, oh, you're here to kill me. The possibility of protecting Ellie is off the table. Like, that's gone. So it wasn't about protecting Ellie. So why didn't he try to survive the situation at all? Again, remember, I didn't see him do anything evil. So that's not he was just accepting his fate kind of thing either. This was so much better. Why? I keep asking that question, why? But there really is no answer. And at least unless Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, or whatever the heck his name is, wants to come and tell me. But I don't understand why you would change this and not be aware of what the situation is going to be when you make the changes that were made for the show. So Ellie's approaching the lodge or whatever, and first of all, she's shouting out like, Joel, Tommy, whatever. That, again, it has everybody lost the sense that there are raiders out there, and maybe you should be cautious when you're approaching places like this. Also, where are the infected? I don't know, but did all of them get torched from that Molotov cocktail? I'm starting to get complainy here. But anyway, it's still better than what they did in the show. Ellie goes into the lodge and then goes into the room, not ready to immediately react in case there's a dangerous situation, even though she can clearly hear that somebody is being beaten up. So I do like what they did in the show there, because Ellie cautiously entered into the room and was ready to act. She had her dagger out and everything. I mean, I know that Ellie did in the game too, but it was very evident that she was cautiously entering, and she jumps into the room ready to surprise everybody and take action, and they still get the jump on her. So that was good in the show. In the game, a little less cautious, was a little less thrilled by how she reacted in that situation. Another thing that I'm seeing that the show did that the game did not is in the show, Owen is the one who stopped Manny from beating Ellie up. And in the game, that's not the case. So what that does in the show is it creates an obligation on the part of Ellie to save or spare Owen in the future if she's ever in a life or death situation with him. And then that does come up. So I liked that. Of course, then she shoots him on accident. But Anyway, so I thought that was a good improvement to have Owen be the one who comes in and stops Manny. Unless they're gonna have the person who did stop Manny in the game, which I think, I don't know, it was one of the girls, stops him from kicking her in the gut. So maybe that character will bring that up later to Ellie. But we'll see. Basically plays out the same. Ellie begs them not to do this, but Owen tells Abby, hurry up and finish this. And instead of knifing him, or not knifing him, but spearing him through the throat, she basically she brains him with the club, which actually is more brutal, I feel. But then we get the moment where Manny wants to shoot Ellie, and Owen is the one who stops her at this moment. So, okay, they've kept that in, they just had it come in at a different moment. Anyway, it ends with Ellie being kicked in the face unconscious. There was some debate that was happening between all these people, and we couldn't hear it because of the ringing going on in Ellie's ears. Then after Ellie is woken up by Dina, and Dina's like, I'm so sorry, we have another cut to black, but it's obvious Joel is dead at that point, and then we're back in Jackson. So I'm gonna end this first review here and gonna pick up again. I'm gonna film it right now and jump into the next segment of the game, but it'll be in a separate video for you guys. Otherwise, they're just super, super long videos. But it was interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how we see the fact that Tommy was with Joel instead of Dina being with Joel affects the story going forward. I have heard that Tommy leaves for revenge before Dina does, but that could just be the rumor mill. I don't know. I'll see if that's what they actually do, which is not what they did in the show. So having that dynamic change here by putting Tommy with Joel instead of Dina with Joel, I just want to see how that affects the motivations of the characters going forward. But we'll talk about that when we get to that stuff. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and comment, even if it's just with an emoji. It is a free way to support this channel and boost the video and the algorithm. Otherwise, if you're feeling generous, check out my Patreon, Ko-fi, or hit the money heart thanks button down below. You can become a subscriber, you can leave a one-time tip. Anything is much appreciated. Thanks for sticking around. See you in part 2. Be good to yourself.